Fran Burwell from the Atlantic Council. I wanted to talk about Afghanistan and ask about that and what it means for how Europe and the United States may perceive an interdependent world differently. When you're in Washington, although attitudes toward the war are ambivalent, as I think Bob Woodward has shown in his recent book, there is little doubt that this was a war that was initially just and needed to be done. I think that's an overall reaction in Washington, the Afghanistan war, not the Iraq war, that this was a response to a terrorist attack in New York and Washington. In Europe, although that may initially have been the attitude, it has now, the attitude overwhelmingly has become, we're in this war because the Americans asked us to. Even though Europe is much closer physically and would suffer more consequences, I think, if Afghanistan were to revert to something undesirable. But what does this say? I mean, we can argue about that whole thing, but what does this say about how the US perceives the world as being interdependent and itself being affected abroad from issues abroad? And what does it say about how Europe sees itself as affected by forces from abroad? And is Europe still a regional power, or with a regional perspective largely? Is it still true to say the US is primarily with a global perspective? Is that one of the lessons of Afghanistan? Thank you.
Fabrice, you want to, you're really anxious to do this.
Yeah, because I think this is an interesting topical question. But just going back in the past, the US has not asked its NATO allies to move in Afghanistan at the beginning. There was indeed an Article 5 invoked for the first time, but in the end it was Operation Enduring Freedom. It was a coalition of the willing, and actually the US didn't really want to do with NATO allies. It's only when Iraq came on the table that then the US obviously needed to have more of a kind of permanent framework, and that NATO troops started to move in, and then in 2005 you had the rotation, Helmand, Kandahar with Canada and the UK. But I think on the other hand, it's true that Europe has missed a real rendezvous with the Afghanistan question, because most European leaders have sold Afghanistan as this is the mother of all threats, we need to be there, and yet they were doing it for pure transatlantic reasons. So there was a gap between how they were explaining the mission and how they were doing the mission. So they were doing too little that was not really matching the kind of high rhetoric, and I think what you saw is that European public has lost illusions, because European public in a way has been cheated about what Afghanistan really mattered from a strategic point of view. So if there were to be another Afghanistan, I think European governments will need to be much harder in assessing what that means from a national interest. Is it really, does it matter? If it matters, how much are we ready to take in terms of risk?
I think, Fran, I would draw exactly the opposite conclusion. I would say that actually the increasing European cold feet about Afghanistan is because Europe is more interconnected with the Islamic world. I mean, the prevailing view in Europe, rightly in my view, is now that the Afghanistan imbroglio has been counterproductive. It has not increased our security, it has diminished our security in Europe, because it has put us at cross purposes with large slices of the Islamic world and large slices of our own populations. And there is a degree of interdependence which America is rather freer from.
I think yes, the Danish colleague, and that's the last question before we close it down. I know who you are, but could you identify yourself?
Thank you. Just a remark on Afghanistan. I'm from the Swedish Minister for Foreign Affairs. Isn't the European cold feet a reflection of the debate in US, actually? There has been the last years, or since the American election, of course, a different debate and not a very united American opinion on Afghanistan. And of course, this is creating an uncertainty in Europe as well. The second remark I would say is no one has mentioned soft power and the European soft power. And I think we have done a number of rather successful operations within the framework of the common European security and foreign policy, like Chad, like the waters outside Somalia, Congo before, etc. So I don't think that it's entirely correct picture to paint a picture that Europe is passive and not doing anything. I think we have done rather good progress the last 10 years, actually.
Thank you very much for this. I know, just one thing. I mean, well, then in that case, the Europeans can't win because they always say, well, you know, the Americans call the shots and we have to wash the dishes or dry the dishes afterwards. And then the other hand, oh, we want to be a hard power, but no, we don't want to really, you know, go in fighting. I mean, Europe wants to have it both ways, and it's not like that. Jan, and last, and maybe Minister. And then we go to
the only thing is that I think, you know, that currently the best hope for improving the relations between NATO and the EU is their operational collaboration in the field. I think, you know, that here there are many things which are settled, there are many things which are in agreement, and therefore, you know, we can build on that. And I think, you know, that this is the promising way to improve the relations between the two organizations.
Oh, yeah.
One venue.
Right. Yes, thank you very much. It was a super panel. Oh, sorry, Minister.
I want to thank for the Swedish vote. I very much second it. I also want to say, look at the Balkans now and how much we have been able to achieve after all. And this is all about soft transformative power of the EU. It's how we can attract those countries to the European perspective, although of course it's not easy, and Bosnia is the best example. The last word is, the biggest problem with the EU treating itself seriously in foreign policy is the lack of coordination. I saw very recently the discussion about Pakistan after the floods and about trade. It was not just about trade, but of course all the complexity of AFPAC issue. And this was a very good example of how much we are still not really able to coordinate our various policy instruments. And believe me, that this will be really my last word. Security is not the most difficult part. Trade is far more difficult.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, former Defense Minister of Romania. Thank you very much, Patrice from Carnegie, Ambassador, US Ambassador Warsaw, and Nick Witney from European Council of Foreign Relations. Thank you very much, audience. Thank you.